Welcome to the Spiritual Artist Podcast. This is Chris Miller. I invite you to join me as I interview artists from a variety of disciplines. We'll share powerful stories and lessons learned while making their art. Good day, spiritual artists. This is CJ Miller, your host of the Spiritual Artist Podcast. Having quite a morning here where technology is failing me, but I'm really excited. I brought back a guest that I had on the show probably a little more than a year ago, and our conversation was so delightful. So I'm going to bring back Ann McMaster. She is an international coach and senior trainer for the More to Life Foundation. Anne shares how the More to Life methodology reveals your real reality. She's a psychotherapist, a trainer, a consultant, and coach, and also author of a book called Life Shocks. Good morning, Anne. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great, except for that our listeners, the sound wasn't working. I had to take off my mic, but here we are, and I'm going to share this with the listeners. When I teach creativity and when I teach how to approach the creative process, oftentimes the most important thing is setting intent. You set an intent. And then letting spirit, creative intelligence, divine intelligence answer that intent. So I'm going to share with the listeners that I only have a very small intent for my conversation with you, Anne, and we're just going to kind of, let it unfold.
Sounds good to me.
And trust that the right thing is going to come to your mind and my mind, because every time we talk, we just go to town. And I love your methodology. And what I wanted to start with, listeners, is I'll tell you the truth. It's rough. The things pulling on us and social media, from just opinions of others. The society today seems very short on patience with other people. Would you agree, Anne?
I would say not only short on patience, but short on compassion.
Right.
You know? And I mean, if we were, I think truth, I define truth as facts plus compassion. And if the compassion's not there, then it's just facts used as a sledgehammer or as a fear tactic or as something to get you to do what other people want you to do.
Right.
So for me, it's always about compassion.
And you just don't see that much. I think it seems everybody's offended these days.
Yeah.
And then everybody's right. And also telling other people what to do and not having respect. Maybe one of the words we talked about, and I love this word, is personal sovereignty.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what that means a little bit, personal sovereignty, to the listener?
Well, my definition, personal sovereignty is me being true to my essence. And so if I abandon my essence, or if I betray my essence, or if I abdicate my essence, I get into trouble. And it's like, it seems to me like there's like two kinds of people. One of them where they say, I know how you should be. The others say, I don't know how I should be. So it's like they trade on that. And our not obligation, but it's like our sovereignty is, am I going to be true to myself so that I show up and I behave in a way that's congruent with the gift I've been given to be. So if I'm true to the gift I've been given to be, you may not like that. But again, your journey's not my journey. My journey's my journey. And so it's up to me to educate people about what's okay with me and what's not okay with me. But it's also my thing. I need to say what's okay about my behavior and what's not okay about my behavior. Where do I act like a jerk? Where do I act as if I'm not important? Any one of those things. So it's like constantly monitoring my own behavior on the one hand, my own attitude. Am I in a space of connection, or am I a space of right, wrong, good, bad, pretty, ugly, fair, unfair, as if I were the judge of the world?
Oh,
Which,
there's so yeah, you just said so many things I could just go off on that, are wonderful. Um, because I do think and as a teacher, and I teach my spiritual artist, I teach people to find out what their inner voice is and who they are. But there's a but.
yes, of
Your
course.
job is not to tell other people what their personal sovereignty is, or how they need to be, or how they need to their value system. And that seems to be such a challenge right now.
Yes. I mean, even my own daughter, uh, I remember thinking that it was my job to, grow her up the way I think she should grow up. Then I did this course in the More to Life program about parenting. And I realized, that she is her very own person. And my job is to find out who she is and then support her being that. And that's me as a coach. It's me as a consultant. It's me as a therapist. I mean, it's me as a human being. I want to be there to support my friends to go in the direction they want to go in, not necessarily what I think is good. I can say, why don't you think about such and such? And they can say, nah, not a fit. Or, that's a good idea. Let me think about that. But I throw it out there as something that came up, but with no insistence that they live their life my way. And
Right.
as the oldest of 8 kids, I can tell you, do it my way is what I learned from my parents, and I passed it right on to all my siblings.
Well, and it's funny, it's interesting though, because you're talking about, and your job as a mother too. Your job as a mother is to be that presence
Yes,
for your daughter, but not necessarily to be controlling her. You are not her controller.
exactly. And that's a hard one because I love her so much. It's like I want the best for her. But what I have to remain sovereign about is that I don't know what's best for her. I hardly know what's best for me. It just
Mhm.
unfolds step by step, day by day. Well, my job is to find out, who are you and what do you want? Where's your talents? Where's your strengths? What do you feel drawn to?
Yeah, and you know what I would say is what I believe that job is. I'll put it in an I statement. I almost said you, but for me, it's about being a place of love. You know,
Yes.
it's really about holding that space of love for the other person.
Yeah, I call it forness versus againstness.
Oh, I love that.
I want to be for her. I remember one of the things I read about a very famous nun who said, I will not join an anti war march, but I will join a pro peace march. So as soon as I get into againstness, I'm already at war here
Mm.
because it's not my way. And I'm at war inside, and I'm in war out with people out there who aren't behaving the way I think they should.
Yeah, that's a real I consider it a spiritual law, um, to go with it. When I do my spiritual art retreats, there's an acting technique
Mm,
that says you go with it, you go and. So
yes,
when someone says a comment, in improv, you don't stop the pace, you go with it.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, I have a friend of mine who's doing a video called The River Beneath the River. And that river beneath the river is the one that connects us all if we were to be in touch with it.
Mhm.
So there's this one river of how it's flowing out here, but the real river is the one that connects our humanity. And, animals and land and rocks and trees and whatever. In some ways, it's like all one. And when we can get to that place, then what you do with your life, how can I help?
Yeah. I think that's wonderful. I'm reading this book.
Mhm.
It's funny, I actually have it here. I don't know if you've ever heard of um, Kathleen Dowling Singh. She is a Buddhist um,
Oh,
teacher, and she wrote this book called The Grace in Dying. And what's interesting about it is she talks about that the process. It's not just about dying; it's really about your spiritual journey and
sure.
and how we grow into we're set into humanity. We're born
Mhm.
and we're this space, a baby, just pure love, right? We're just pure love and in the moment and present. But then we start realizing, well, if I do this, I get approval. And if I do that, I don't get approval. And so we start what's called othering, right? It's like othering. And then we start noticing that time is going by. And then we start noticing pain and pleasure. And so she goes through this whole process. And she talks about, she was a hospice prayer practitioner. She would go and do hospice for people. And she talked about the process of dying is a process of where you reconnect to that
Yeah.
river, the
Yes.
river underneath the river.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And she says you can be forced to do it through a sickness or illness or death,
Sure.
or you can choose it. You can choose that way of being.
It's like letting go. So I'm always in a process of letting go of something that's not me that I thought I had to be in order to not be, ostracized in some way. So how do I let go of those things that I, like adopted in order to get what I thought I needed to have?
Right.
Like letting go of this and then letting go of that, letting go of this, letting go of that. And then I die to the not me. So I can live the me, the real me.
Oh, that's a lovely statement. I die to the not me so I can live as the real me.
Yeah.
And I think when going back to our conversation, if we get to the place with our interactions with others, whether they're our children, our neighbors, our family, and we come from a place of love
Yes.
instead of a place of control or
Yes.
what you need to be or
Yes.
what that false belief of what I think you are or should be,
Yes.
you get
Because
to,
that,
yeah,
yeah. Go ahead.
go ahead.
Well, that comes with fear. And as soon as somebody tries to scare me, I, 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 I thought, okay, they're after something they want me to do that I might not want to do. I might want to, but I need to hear the underneath thing. But I tend to avoid people who think their job is to scare me into doing what they think I should, you know, unless they're a really good friend and they're that way. And then it's a temporary deal, and I say, well, so what's going on here? You know? So I look at the way people, what they say, what they do, and how they feel. When their say, do, feel all match, I trust them. If they say yes, but do no, then I don't trust them. If they say yes, do yes, but feel no, I don't trust them.
Oh,
So
I
it's,
love that.
yeah,
It's that they have to all be in alignment.
right. Whether the alignment is no, no, and no, then great. I can trust that. But if it's yes, yes, and yes, I can trust that. But if any one of those is out, then my next question is what's going on?
You
Because
know,
they don't know sometimes.
well, no, they don't. But what's funny is we oftentimes rely on what they say and don't look at the other layers. Right.
Yes.
And I,
Yes.
I want to share something with the listeners. Is I reached out to a friend of mine um, to this yesterday morning, and I said I want to take you to lunch. I want to buy you lunch, is what I said, and talk to you about they needed help with something. I said I'm willing to help you with some advice on this, and they came back and said yes, but then they said, but I need you to come to my side of town. And I thought, this, it's funny, right? Because I heard the yes, but then it was this undercut. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm buying you lunch.
It's yes, but.
It's a yes, but.
So
And how do you now? I'll ask you, and how do I respond? Right now, I just haven't responded. I just stopped. You know what I did? I just stopped. I was like, okay, this doesn't feel good to me anymore. See, originally it felt good. It was
yeah,
like, I bring you this gift.
yes.
We always should be wary of people that say they're when someone brings you a gift and then they question it or change it. It's hard, right?
Yeah. Well, then I would ask the person, what's the deal here? Why do you want me to come to your side of town? You
Right.
know, so it's like I'm always questing for more information. I want to
Okay.
know what's the situation underneath the yes, but.
Right. Right.
So sometimes I'd be willing to, and sometimes it's not. Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll come to your side of town, you buy me lunch.
That's it's so funny, and that my impulse was to say that. My impulse was to say just that. Okay, I'll come over there, but you're buying me lunch then. This is
But
how.
you know, really everything is about boundaries.
Mm,
What am I willing to put up with? And for people who are in my inner, it's like I give them more latitude because they give me more latitude.
right.
And then there's the next layer out of people that, it's a little bit more circumspect, or I try to get everybody to know what my boundaries are. I mean, I remember one time being picked up at the airport. I'd been flying. It was a long flight. I was exhausted. And my friend didn't pick me up till I'd been waiting for like 45 minutes. So what I realized, I had a boundaries. I wanted to be picked up as soon as I got out the door. But I didn't tell her that. So sometimes they cross boundaries they don't know they crossed because I haven't said anything. So now it's like a wake up for me. So I make sure I know, okay, this is the deal.
And to be more clear when you asked for the help,
More
right?
clear, clear,
Just
always.
be more clear.
And
But it
I
is. It's all about boundaries. And I think, I tell people, I think that's the hard, I'll tell you, and that's the hardest thing for me is when people are sending what you call mixed signals, right? They'll say one thing and they won't. Yes, exactly. And you're like, what, wait a minute. Did you want me to help you with this job search? Or do you know what I mean? Or do you want to just stay in your house? And people, that's why you meet people and they'll say one thing that they're passionate about doing this, and you're like, but are they really?
yeah, say, do, feel.
Say, do, feel. And so that goes on your side too, right?
Yes,
You you
absolutely.
you said you wanted to be picked up at the airport
Right. I didn't say I wanted to be picked up, but
on
that's how I
time.
learn. And that's how I slough off this stuff, is by life shocks, basically saying,
Uh-huh.
okay, that didn't work. Now what? So my constant question is, now what? How do I learn from this? Because it's
Right.
always about learning and growing and becoming more real. I mean, like we talked about earlier with the social media stuff, how do you know any of that stuff's real?
Right. Right.
They're say, do, feel, or not.
And more today than ever because of AI and artificial photography and all that they can do, we have to question everything. Is this real?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. My edge I'm working on right now is discernment, so that I can discern for myself what's a fit for me on the one hand, what's not, but also, discerning say, do, feel. And sometimes I don't have anything to go on other than my gut, which says,
So does
it's
that work? Does that say do feel work? Like if I'm scrolling through TikTok and I see some inflammatory post, whatever it is, we don't need to say, whatever it's one side or the other, or how is there a checklist? Do I just look at what they're saying and then see what they're doing, and then how do I feel about it, or how do they feel? How do you do this? How would you do this?
Most of the time you don't know because you only have one presentation of what they're saying. You don't know about the do, and the feel can be faked. So, or maybe they say what they say and how they feel are all the same, but you don't know if they actually really do it or not. My criteria is, are they trying to scare me? If they're trying to scare me, then they want something from me that is what they want, not necessarily what I want. So any kind of fear tactic, something in me goes off my it's a meter I have. I call it my BS meter.
Sounds good.
It goes way off when as soon as it starts getting scary.
So when you hear some sort of intent for fear, or to
Yes.
create to fear, to make you afraid, you immediately become more discerning,
I don't trust it.
right?
Yeah. When I was living in Africa, I was it was during the time where carjackings were just all the time. And I would come home from a meeting, so I often had meetings at night. So I'd come home at night by myself, and sometimes across a big swath of South Africa, Joburg, where I lived. So my intent was not to be scared. I thought, I'm just not going to live in fear here. It's not how I was designed. It's not what my heart's about. It's not what my gut's about. And my head could mess with me about it, but I'm going to be awake instead of scared. So awake, like when I would come home at night, I had I had there's a technique called soft eyes. And so I would go soft eyes. I can see, out both windows. And that kind of gave me a sense of the situation. So there were times when I'd blow through a red robot stoplight because it just I didn't have any data. It was just a gut thing. So I'd blow right through that robot. And then other times I would stop and it was no big deal. I never had anything happen to me untoward in Africa. On all the trips I've been there, which I've been there many times, and for the 2 years I lived there in Joburg, which was 95 and 96, which is after the election. And so there was a lot of crime.
Mhm. Oh, that's a wonderful metaphor. Um, so
So that,
soft eyes, let's unpack that a little bit. What does
okay,
it let's think about soft eyes as a
sure.
way of approaching life, right?
So it's like I'm doing, I can, if I'm focused here, it's like this. But if I'm soft eyes, it's like everything's, it's like I see 180, the field 180. And then I can take in the sunlight coming in over here, the things on the trees over there, the car in the thing, and it's like I can take in way more data. If I'm
Sure.
focused here, all I see is this. I don't see any of that.
See the whole picture. It's like soft eyes is like see the whole picture, see the whole environment. And also you said that there was a red light. You mean like a red light, and
Yeah, stoplight.
you would just drive through it because you had a feeling that if you stopped, something would happen?
I didn't know. So I had no data, but it said, okay, there's nobody at this light. There's there's a culvert thing over here and a bunch of bushes, and same over here. Perfect place for a hijacking at a stoplight. Lone woman, white,
Right.
10 o'clock at night,
No other cars.
no other
Right.
cars.
Yeah. So this is great. So you had soft eyes, you looked at the situation, but you also had a gut feeling. And I know you love to talk about the gut. You had an instinct there that you listened to it.
Yes. And I didn't have any data. But when I was 20 years old, we went to, there was a big, they call it spring something or other in Galveston. So college people all over, everywhere. My girlfriend and I, we're in a car. We're going through this maze of humanity, all, college age kids. They're all drinking. There's music blaring. And we were going to drive through like a lot of other cars. And I said, I'm getting out. It looked like fun. I
Oh,
said, I'm getting out. I'll find my way home if you want to go through, but I'm not going through there. So she turned around. The next day, I read about two girls who were pulled out of their cars and raped with bottles and all kinds of other stuff.
oh my God.
So from then on, I thought, okay, I'm paying attention to my gut because I had no data. It looked like fun.
Well, it's interesting because I love to talk about this. More and more, I'm raised Catholic and in the West, and I think we're so much up here, right? We're all in the brain. Everything is about thinking, thinking, thinking. But there is an instinctual thing in our body, our gut, that even though it doesn't. So when you say there was nothing there, you meant there was nothing that you could see, nothing that there wasn't a sign saying beware or danger, but there was something there.
I don't know what it was.
But it was on your physical, your gut level.
Yes. I wasn't doing it just for fun. I'm pretty, I don't want to get stopped by a cop, but the gut has 500 million thinking neurons, partly to help digest stuff, but partly to protect the heart destiny. This doesn't have that. This always processes data. It has billions of thinking neurons, so it can process all the data that comes in through everything I see, hear, smell, taste, touch. I got to process all that. So when I see the robot coming up and red light, and I don't have any data up here.
Mhm. So you only have, we're talking about your mind, the data of your mind. Then you have your heart space, and I think the heart space. Would you say the heart space just means, like when I said I come from love, that
Yes.
yes, come from love, and coming from love means you're going with it, not against it. You're not fighting something. You're not fear based. You're just coming from love. I'm in love right now. I'm in the space of loving everything, and then you listened to your gut.
Yes. It's like the heart knows who I am, who I'm not. It's how I connect, the empathy that I feel for other people, and that everybody that connects is heart. This doesn't connect. It strategizes. It's always about figuring stuff out. The heart doesn't have to figure out. It knows. So feelings are here. They're discovering more and more. So the heart has 40,000 to 120,000 thinking neurons, 50,000, 500,000 in the gut, and then billions here. But this needs all that to figure out everything I'm see, hear, smell, taste, touch. That's a lot of information.
Right.
This doesn't need, this knows. And the gut's there to say, mm, yes, move to Africa. Because this said, don't move to Africa. You're 50 years old. What the hell do you think you're doing? It's a third world country. It's way far. No. And my heart said, go. My gut said, go now.
Hmm.
And my house out, sold everything, left. It was 2 years. I got to backpack in the Okavango. I got to whitewater raft the Zambezi and the Orange Rivers. I did trainings in Durban, Cape Town, and Joburg. I did some amazing things that I would never have been able to do anywhere else. Just going on a morning walk and being, 8 feet from a rhino. And I wasn't scared. They can't see very
So
good.
this the material, I'm trying to think of the right word, the viewpoint, philosophy that
Yes.
you use right now with the mind, heart, and gut, did that come from your trip to Africa, or did it lead you to Africa, or both?
No, it's like, let's see, how do I say this? You've heard this thing about follow your heart, trust your gut?
Yeah.
My whole life. So at 20, when I had that one experience in Galveston, Texas, and I thought, okay, my gut does know something, I better pay attention. So it's like I somehow knew that's how the world works. Follow your heart, trust your gut. Get this thing to tell, get your heart where it wants to go. That's its function when it's used properly. It's strategized, okay, like, okay, I want to be a ballerina. You're a little old for that. What do you really want? And I thought, okay, well, I really want to dance. I mean, I just love to dance. Okay, we can get that going.
And that came from your mind?
Yeah, I want a strategy for dancing. When the mind said, okay, this is going to take you a very long time and you may kill you in the process. My gut said, what you really want to do is dance. Come on.
It just got down to the basic. But they all
Boom.
work together. They all worked together.
They work together if you follow your heart, trust your gut. Get this to get you where you want to go. It's always about my essence, and that's the sovereignty. The heart is actually who I am at my core and my essence. So the gut keeps me out of trouble and also encourages me to do things that my head says I wouldn't do that. But if the gut says I wouldn't do that, I pay attention. My head says I wouldn't do that, I don't pay much attention. I ask for more information. Why do you say?
Oh, oh, this is very interesting. So, is the gut more, would you consider the gut related to your higher self or a higher consciousness, or is it just personal?
Personally, I think my gut's hooked into what I call the grid.
Okay.
And in quantum physics, it's like the everything nothing. God, the universe,
All that is.
all that is, all that ever was. It's like it's hooked in that way. When I give it credibility, is when my life works more efficiently. I don't go on so many, you know, off track things. Get me in
So,
trouble.
I'm going to play the role of the listener, because I think here in the West, especially, we're so taught to work from our minds, whether when we're scrolling through the news, when we're interacting with other people, and when we're talking to our children.
Yes.
Oftentimes we're all up in our head, up in the head. Mom, you're not allowed to do that. Why? Because I was always told you're not allowed,
Yeah,
it's all up in the head. And
I
so,
said so.
right. Yeah, I said so because that's the way I was always taught, and I remember a big fight I had with my parents once when I was 26. I wore a baseball cap into a restaurant and my mother had a fit. She wouldn't start eating until I took that hat off my head. And I said to her, I'm not your business. But she still doesn't get that.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it's an honoring people, especially if it doesn't cost me anything. It
Right.
maybe a
Right.
little pride or a little ego.
Yeah.
That's never a bad thing. Um, but it's like in the place of honoring who I am, it's also important that I honor everybody else. So to honor their sovereignty. And that mattered a lot to her. She wasn't going to eat.
Right.
We took it off. So my hat doesn't matter that much to me. So my mother matters more than my stick to my hat.
Oh, it just depends. However,
On
so
a bad hair day, that's okay.
exactly. For a listener, how do they move from operating from their mind to operating from their heart and gut and mind altogether? How do I shift? I was all my life I've operated from my mind, and now you're telling me what to follow my instinct, to follow what is true to me, and then to listen to the instinct that comes to me. How?
It is definitely a shift, and it's not supported in our culture. So it's a self-determining journey, if you will. But in the end, it's how it is anyway. So one of the things as a therapist, I know that neuroscience, if you put your hand over your heart, okay, now wait till your hand feels kind of warm.
Uh-huh.
And then some people have to close their eyes, but see if you can imagine or get a feel for that warmth of your hand going past your ribs into your heart.
All right.
So just keep allowing your heart to feel the warmth of your hand. And then see if it will allow your hand to feel the vibration of your heart as it beats.
Hmm. I think I'm dead, Anne.
Sometimes if you can feel it easier on after you exhale and then pause before the inhale.
It's there. It's deep, but yes.
Yes. Yes. This connects you to your essence. This will stop a panic attack. This will put you back in touch with yourself like that.
Mm.
Now, if you want to advance, you could put your other hand below your navel, lower torso.
All right.
Okay. Same thing. If you exhale, and sometimes this takes a little bit longer, and some days I can't do it at all, but most days I can feel the resonance of my heartbeat, both in my head, in my gut, and in my heart.
Ooh, I love this. I think I'll have to practice it, but
Yes,
I love the idea of it.
because that puts all three in sync. And most of the time in my head, I can feel it even sometimes in my throat, sometimes in my ear, like a drum, and sometimes it's behind my eyes, and sometimes it's at the top of my head.
Oh. I'll tell the listeners, don't do this if you're driving.
No, this is
But but this is a neat practice to
yeah,
practice. I just did a service at the Center for Spiritual Living in Dallas, and I had them do not with their heart, but just touching by touch.
yes,
And then I had them listen,
uh-huh,
had them feel and
yes.
smell, and just taking all the senses in to connect them.
And that's easier to do if you have wide peripheral vision.
Right. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, soft gaze. A lot of yoga instructors will say, have a soft gaze or
Mhm.
meditation.
Sure.
This is just a different way of doing it.
Yeah.
Um, but I like it
This is
because,
the physical
yeah.
connection. So when you do this, it physically connects you to out here, things you don't see when you're focused. And if you can do this, soft eyes, and get a feel for what's going on in your throat, any colors or sensations or um, images, anything.
Mhm.
That also does the same thing as what you were talking about, except, it takes in everything. So then you can move down into your chest, see what colors, images, sensations, what's ever there. And then the solar plexus and then the gut. And that exercise brings you home. This does too, but this brings you home to everything out there. I like to do this when I'm doing a meditation outside, when I'm walking. So it's like I can take in everything, the feel of the wind on my skin or
Mhm.
and then just like breathing in like all of it. I keep trying to go back to that one experience I had in Africa where I melded right into, I was like, me wasn't anymore. I was all part of the scene.
Uh-huh.
So it's like trying to get back to that. I've not ever been able to replicate it, but I can come closer when I'm um, walking. I need to move, moving helps me. Other people, if they're better if they're still, right? Moving helps me do that.
Well,
easier.
I think it's a way of connecting your consciousness with your body, that heart, like you talked about heart space and the gut space. And that's where I've been so interested in the last year is all these talking to different people about your body and movement
Yes.
and how important that is, how we get disconnected from our bodies, or I have gotten disconnected from my body. I use I again, but yes. And so I love this idea of holding your hand on your heart, but feeling for that beat. But for me, what it is, Ann, is I'm taking my consciousness, how some people might say, picture a light in the middle of your eyes in the third eye. I'm putting my consciousness down into my heart.
Yes.
And then I'm putting my consciousness, what you're saying, down into my gut.
Yes.
And so to me, it is a way of, and then if you do branch it out, you
Yes.
connect to you're projecting your little self out to the whole world, right?
Yes.
And I have done that in exercises where I to Tonglen. Are you familiar with the term Tonglen? Where it's like pulling in the pain of the world and sending out love.
Yes.
It's a meditation practice. You breathe in the pain of the world and then send it out as love. So it's all about that body, right?
Yes. And Ho'oponopono does a very similar thing.
Yes, it does.
You can take in somebody and you just connect to them, and you know, you don't take on their pain, but you love them. And there was a guy that started it, and he started with um, inmates who were the bad of the bad, and they would, two of them transformed, and he didn't ever even see them. So that's this river beneath the river thing again,
Right.
whole connection, and that's, I think, heart to heart to heart to heart, because that's what connects. The gut connects me to me. This connects me to me and everybody else. That's why social media can be so distracting, because it's like,
It just pulls you away. It really does pull you from center. It pulls you from your center if you let it. If you let it.
and the secret is, if it's fear-based, anything that tries to make me feel scared, I go, let me back off from that and see what's really going on.
You know what's so funny that you say that? I have started doing this. First, I've pulled back from a lot of media, but what I'm doing now is if I do fall into media, sometimes I'll because I'm unfortunately I advertise a lot of my retreats on YouTube and on media. But what I'll do is if I'm flipping, the minute I sense, the minute, it doesn't take long. You can sense in a headline, you can sense in a picture that this is hate or fear. I just flip. I just flip. Flip it away. And
Yep.
the more you do that, the algorithm will stop serving it to you.
Oh,
Mhm. Yeah. Because it serves you what you pause on. So if you see something nasty and you pause, and the longer you pause, it's going to serve up more, right?
well, that's the way people are too. And the more, if you will take more and more, what bullying or anything along those lines, trying to talk you into something you don't want to do, um, it's the same.
It is the same. You
Yep.
attract more of it,
You
right?
check. I've worked with women who've been abused over and over and over, by their husband. Their husband always says, okay, this time I stop, I promise, just come back. And then something happens, he blames her. It's the norm, but this can not just couples, this is anybody. So he blames her, she takes the blame, like we talked about earlier. I can't ever do anything right, according to my father. And um, but as soon as you take it, then they've got you. Or people who are scared of anger. As soon as I know I can control you with anger, man, I use it whenever I need to. And I'll know you'll cave
Mm.
until my anger gets hooked. And then that's when you have a Lorena Bobbitt thing.
Yeah, and you have an explosion because you're matching the energy. So you
It's
want,
still about tape.
you know,
And
I,
I'm not taking this anymore. Find somebody else that's what you like.
I love this. When I love this, I think I said it once before, but someone explained to me in the Bible where Jesus says, "Turn the other cheek." To me,
Yes.
what that means, it doesn't mean turn the other cheek so you can get hit on the other side. To me, what it means is look in the direction of what you want.
Mhm.
If someone is bringing you hate, turn towards someone that brings you love.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you don't push against them because you can't
No,
resist. You
no.
turn your other cheek to what you want,
Yeah.
right?
That's what I tell people who get scared about, or worried, all of that. It's like, I hold that as a negative prayer. I'm praying for things I don't want because I keep focusing on it. And how the mind works is there's the reticular activating system back here, and its job is to kick to the curb anything that doesn't have to do with what you're feeling. So if I'm all nervous and there's this thing over here that says, here's a way out, no, I stay here. It kicks that part out because it maintains what it is I'm most feeling about. Heart. So, um, my job is to, as soon as I get scared and I'm into what I don't want, what do I want? Instead of that, what do I want? And how am I going to go about this where I can get my brain to say, okay, this is what I want. Now what?
Right. Redirect. Mhm.
Yeah, redirect, same thing.
When I went through training for the Center for Spiritual Living, and they teach a product. It's Ernest Holmes. It's a way of prayer. It's called affirmative prayer. And what
Yes,
it is you affirm what you want. You don't sit there and say, "Please don't let me starve." You say, "I am so," right. I am so
same
full of
thing.
all that I have. Right. You focus on your current abundance, your current what you have.
Yes.
And I really do believe it's aligned with science. Like you
Yeah.
just, it's not just people like to think spirituality and science are two separate things. They are not.
Neuroscience really is affirming everything we've been talking about.
Exactly. It is.
Quantum physics as well.
Yes. Yes.
What form follows energy.
Right. It
So
does.
I'm if I have if I can see, like when I was like, I don't know, 30 or so, I thought, okay, I have a prayer bowl, and I had a picture of myself at 80 of what I would look like and how I would be. And that I'm 80. That picture has happened.
Well, good. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. And I didn't even really I wasn't as committed to that in the past as I have been over the years. If I see instance after instance after instance of where form followed energy. So if I'm scared, it like invites scary stuff because it's affirming what the energy.
Mm.
So
See, I knew that if we started talking, we would come up with all these wonderful things. And there's so much that we've talked about that is wonderful. Is there anything else, because we're running out of time, that you want to share with the listeners that kind of, I feel like we did sum up this conversation so well,
yeah.
but
Well, the last thing always for me is follow your heart. Follow
mm,
your heart. Trust your gut. I
I
mean,
love that.
yeah. And other people, your journey is not at their direction. You're the author of what you choose. So follow your heart, trust your gut. There's a lot of times when I have followed my heart without knowing, like moving to Africa. I had no place to stay. I'd been
Mhm.
there, and I knew people, but I knew I had to go at
Yeah.
50.
It's like we talked about in the beginning of this conversation. It's like you set your intention. It's all you do and let it unfold, right?
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
I love it. Well, Anne, I am so appreciative to having you come back on the show, and you're just a delight. There's so many nuggets in here to share. Thanks.
Same here.
I think,
Easy to talk to.
thanks. Thanks. And it's so nice to, with listeners, you just focus on what you want and turn the other cheek, look away from the other things, don't spend time with them. But understanding the law, that you
Yes.
have a heart to follow and you have a gut to listen to, and you have a mind that will sometimes help you figure out some issues.
Well,
Some
to focus on what you want, it's easier. It's where it's at its best.
Right. You pull that, I call it a tool, and you pull it out when you need it, but don't let it drive you. So
Exactly.
all right. Well, listeners, thanks for following the Spiritual Artist Podcast. Please like or follow this channel on YouTube so I can build my subscriber base and I can reach more people with these wonderful messages. And remember that I do have my book out, The Spiritual Artist, on Amazon, and you can get a copy of it for Christmas. It's a great holiday gift. It's a great way to start the new year. And Anne has her book out there as well. What was that name of that book again, Anne?
Life shocks out of the blue.
Life shocks out of the blue, which goes over a lot of this concepts, a lot, and follow. And after this, listen to my first interview with Anne. She talks more about the book itself, her book. So thank you, and have a good holiday season. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks again for listening to the Spiritual Artist Podcast. Whether you're watching this show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, or iHeartRadio, make sure you choose the subscribe button so that you will receive updates when new segments are released. Most importantly, be still, listen, and know that you are a spiritual artist.